Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in to another author chat today. I am excited to have author Thiago Abdalla joining me. Thiago, how's it going today?
It's been great. It's been great. The book's launched on Tuesday. I think it'll be 3 days when this video goes up. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't have expected the response that I got, to be honest. There was some really cool reviews, and it's just mind-blowing. It really is, because something that's been in my head for a while, and then suddenly it's on the page, and people are reading it, and that people actually like it is is just, it's crazy. It's crazy, but I'm really happy about how things are going.
Good, good. Yeah, I imagine like in some way or shape or form, like it's already hit, but like has it like really hit that like I have a book in the world, people are like getting physical copies with my words written in it, and people are reading it now. Like has that part hit, or do you need like more reviews to roll in before you're like, okay, this is actually a thing?
I think it has, because I actually had quite a few early reviews from NetGalley.
Mhm.
And some reviews start rolling in. I found that the more negative reviews tend to be the first ones, because it's the people who didn't really finish the book or skim through. So it scared me, a debut author. It really is. But yeah, you start getting those, and then you just you read it and say, okay, you get used to it, and then the good reviews start rolling in. And then I think that's when it kind of hit, when you have both the good and the bad reviews, and they say, okay, so there are people who like it, there are people who don't like it. Obviously, it'll find its crowd, and then it's starting to pop up on social media, and people are getting copies and posting them and tagging me. And I think that was a moment, when I started seeing people posting the physical copies on social media, that was like, okay, yeah, it exists. It's not only, me.
Yeah,
I'm not the
yeah,
only one who has a copy. So yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I'm curious, are you gonna be one of those that like is constant like refreshing, like waiting for new reviews to pull in, or are you gonna like take a breather for a little while and then like come back and check and see if like, okay, what's my ratio now?
No, man, I think I'm almost obsessive with that that kind of stuff. I keep updating everything all the time. Yeah, I obviously have a day job, which I try to keep my mind of all the reviews and that stuff when I'm
Yeah.
when I'm at my day job. But the phone's always there, and every time something pops up, I try to interact with people, or just at least answer them, and while I can, I mean, I hope one day, not that I won't answer people, but I hope one day, I'll have enough notifications to miss them. But yeah, it it's been, I'm constantly refreshing stuff, and looking at where things are.
Gotcha. Don't worry. Twitter is always going to be behind you because there are many times, no matter how many followers or whatever your comments or you have, you're going to miss some because you're not
Yeah.
going to get notified about it. So that already happens. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
already at that point.
yeah,
I'll go through some of the more popular tweets. Like I don't have super popular tweets, but the
yeah,
ones that I do, like I'll go through and I'd be like, I've responded to everybody. And there's like some random ones just kind of like thrown in from people I interact with all the time that I never get notified about. And I go, so I wonder if like they think that I'm a jerk because I haven't said anything, or like hopefully
yeah,
they just realize that Twitter just hasn't allowed me to know that it's there. But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so before we kind of get kind of diving into your writing stuff, I want to know a little bit about you. So tell me about yourself. What do you do outside of writing, and then kind of what made you decide to write?
Cool. So I'm actually Brazilian. Yeah. How does a Brazilian write an English book, right? Uh, I studied English. I studied English when I was like really small, like 2, 3 years old. So I grew up with native English speakers, and at school everything was in English. So uh, it got comfortable, and that's actually when I was introduced to fantasy as well. Started reading Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. I think those were the first two, and then it evolved into stuff like Harry Potter and of the other stuff. But I'm not one of those writers who's always, been writing and had the idea of, I'm gonna keep writing for 10 years and then I'm gonna release a book. It was more of I really, really like fantasy, and I really, really like books. I really, really like games, and I've played, Magic the Gathering since I was like 10 or 12 or something, and it's been a big part of my life. And I think, all of this kind of fantasy world that I've always had around me is what kept drawing me to this. And it took me a while, to be honest. It took me a while to realize that what drew me back to it was always the story, even more than, gameplay or whatever. I've always been kind of a single player gamer because I wanted to see where the story was going to end up more than, multiplayer gamer. So story is always what's brought me back. And when my wife got pregnant 2 years ago, it was like kind of like the click, and I said, well, I work at a bank outside of writing. I have a 9 to 6 day job, and that wasn't always 9 to 6. So when my wife got pregnant, I was like, okay, maybe I want to try this. Maybe this is something I can do that could give me more time to spend with my family. And that's when I really decided to start researching what writing was. I was one of those people who thought you needed good grammar and maybe little else to write a story. So I started researching all the pillars, and kind of like if it were some kind of college or school or something. And I was like, okay, so we have dialogue, we have plot, we have character, we have all these separate little things, and I just started reading about it for like eight months to a year. This was like 2019 or something, and then 2020, the start of the year, started outlining, and then I started to write it in August 2020. So yeah, that was kind of like my decision to write the book. It was pretty quick, to be honest. I mean, I've had kind of the idea at the back of my mind that I wanted to write something, but it's not like I'm not one of those guys who's been writing their whole life. I actually said, okay, I want to do this, and I started kind of pursuing it. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, 'cause a lot of people I talked to are like, yeah, I've been writing since I was like 5, and I've been making up stories since I was in elementary school, and I used to tell my parents stories, and I used to tell my friends stories. And it was
Yeah.
like, I wasn't even that type of kid. Like I didn't read a whole lot, and most of my stuff was academic. It wasn't, actually for enjoyment. It was for a grade eventually. And I think that's why like I didn't enjoy it so much. But now that I'm actually able to like enjoy it and talk to, get to talk to authors that I read and so forth, it's a lot more enjoyable. And I think that's kind of what's starting to fuel my want to write. And again, I always use the excuse I don't have time to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true and it's not true. Like I do definitely fill my like, intermittent times with like other things like, reading and blogging and and spending time with my daughter and stuff. So yeah, like I think it's gonna be after one of those things where eventually I wake up even earlier than I do now, and that'll be like my writing time. Because as soon as my kid goes to bed, I'm like, I've maybe got 2 hours, and that's really when I just want to do nothing.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even when she's only here for like a couple hours in the afternoon, like it's enough.
Yeah.
She's all over the place. So
Yeah.
Because she'll be 2 in June. So I mean, as you already being kind of at that stage that they just don't stop. So so it's interesting that you came to it so late. So did you read like books on craft and so forth? Like, I know you've got like Jeff Vandermeer's Wonder Book, you've got Stephen King's on writing and stuff like that. Did you read any craft books like that to really kind of get an idea of how to write a book?
Yeah. I think I read, maybe 20 books cover to cover. And if you get the snippets or just a few chapters that I read from other books, I think I read close to maybe 40 books on craft. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to read enough books to know who was giving me good advice and who was giving me bad advice, because there's a lot in these craft books, and you start to notice patterns sometimes. And and I wouldn't even say good or bad advice. It's just advice that works for you and advice that doesn't work for you, because writing is super personal, and people are always happy to give you advice about it. And I don't think any of it is wrong. I think people will just give you advice of what works, so for them, right? So I read a ton of books because I wanted to find what worked for me. And yeah, they're the big names, Stephen King's on writing and all of that. But I really found, 3 or 4 books that really clicked with me. And then I just kind of reread them and used them to create a process. And that process changed when I started writing, obviously, because it's the same as outlining a book. It's I don't stick 100% to the outline. I leave myself open to kind of move off if things seem like they need to go that way. But it's really good to just kind of have that safety net and have that process that you can fall back onto if stuff doesn't seem to be working, and just that safe place to avoid the writer's block, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. I gotcha. So you would basically call yourself an outliner that also allows for some pantsing here and there.
Yeah. I think I saw George R. R. Martin call it gardening, because you keep coming back to it all the time. But yeah, I mean, the outline is kind of the road. I don't like calling it a track. I like calling it a road, because I like at least the idea at the back of my mind that you can get off the road whenever you want. So if you feel what you wrote in the outline maybe isn't clicking, or sometimes stuff just starts to evolve. Sometimes you're just writing dialogue, and the conversation starts going somewhere, and then you just spark an idea, and it's like, okay, so maybe I can use this to evolve this whole other thing that I hadn't thought about. And I think if I left myself closed off, no, I need to follow the outline, I think I'd lose a ton of things that ended up being really cool in this book. So yeah, I have the outline. It's a map, but I'm always open to new routes here and there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like the idea of a road, because if you stay on a road too long, every now and then you got to get off at a rest area, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can use those as your ends and your pubs in your book.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about reading when you're grown up. Who would you say were some of your bigger influences to actually writing?
So to decide to write, it was actually just basically George R. R. Martin to get the idea. In the past, when I read the whole Song of Ice and Fire, not as it came out, but a little before the series came out. So yeah, I read it. It's actually funny, because when I read something really good, it's inspirational, but it's at the same time, it's it deflates you a bit, because you're gonna go, okay, someone already did this so well. What am I gonna do here? So yeah. And I think maybe that's why I didn't start writing that early. It's because I was, okay, this is really cool, maybe I want to do this, but he's already done it really well. And then I think after that, I started reading other stuff like Mark Lawrence and Joe Abercrombie, who I think are the 2 big ones for me today. I'm even on Mark's Discord, and he's just the best guy. And it's really cool that when you meet one of your heroes, that they're just that cool and that open to helping and supporting you as a writer. So yeah, and it's insane, because he writes super fast, and he's publishing a book a year, and he's got a ton of things to do. So it's insane that he finds time for us. But yeah, I think influence wise, I've always been pulled to these kind of like darker places, because they kind of click with a little more of reality to me. It's I really like, people call it Grimdark, but no one really knows what Grimdark is. But I really know, yeah. I really like, just the worlds that are relatable in a sense of what we have today. And it's really dark, but a lot of these stories end up having, something good at the end. And you can see people growing and people kind of creeping out of the darkness. And I think that's a bit of what I was going for, at least in what I'm doing here with the series. So yeah.
I got you. Yeah, I actually saw that. I think Mark posted that he had gotten a copy of your book about a week or two ago. So I think I don't know if I tagged you or I meant to reach out to you about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, Thiago, Mark's got a copy of your book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Mark. He's great. I've I guess known him, is that the right word? Known him socially
Yeah.
for a couple of years now. Yeah, he's like always super easy to talk to. If he'll answer any question you got for him. Yeah, he's awesome. So I'm glad that that you're able to use his mind for certain things. So
Yeah.
so as far as A Touch of Light goes, like I said, I know you're right in the middle of an escapist tour for it. I know a lot of people at Fanfight Act are currently reading it. You've got some amazing reviews already. You've got some starred reviews that are phenomenal. As far as for the audience that maybe that don't know about it or that haven't had a chance to grab a copy, can you talk a little bit about what A Touch of Light is about?
Yeah. It's an epic fantasy with touches of darkness. I'm not going to call it grimdark, but yeah, it has a little bit of darkness and grittiness to it. It's a multi-POV story with a ton of characters, not as many as Game of Thrones or Malazan, but it's just basically a story about people struggling with a religion in the world that has decided that death is the enemy. So there are texts that they interpreted, and their goddess has left, and the goddess called the Seraph, she left because of all the death and all the mess that they made with the world. So now they have to bring back bring back the worthiness to the world by worshiping life. So if you die, it's assumed that the Seraph let you die because you're unworthy. So your body is burned. You can't be talked about. You can't be remembered. And the story kind of deals with people living in this society on one side. And then there's another society, which are the clans to the south, which actually think death is necessary to keep the world whole. So it's like you need to return the life to the earth so that the earth doesn't die. And there's the dead goddess Zala, which they believe will creep out of the earth if you don't, feed life to the earth. That's kind of like the basic premise. And there are 3 POV characters, 2 in the domain, one in the clans, and each one has their struggles. Adrian's a prince who lost his brother, and he's struggling with this. He wants to find out why his brother died, if it was for nothing, if he can prove his loved one's worthy. His brother's not the only one he loses. So because there's this other thing. And you can stop me if I'm rambling. I'm the worst at pitching my book. I'll just direct people to Alan's from the Library of Alexandria's review, because he did a lot better than I can do. There's this other thing, which if the church found you worthy during life, your body can actually be kept and you can be revived in what they call the promised dawn, right? But what gives credence to this religion is that people actually live really, really long lives. So they live for over 100 years. Some of them are even alive for centuries. so there's this kind of balance in the world of the society away from the domain who don't accept these kind of beliefs, and then the people in the domain who follow the church, which is very much a political entity inside the domain. It's kind of a union of countries. So yeah, and then there's Adrian struggling against a few of these issues and his faith and who he should put his faith in. And then there's Lynn, who's a sentinel, and she's kind of this elite warrior who are they're bonded to griffins. So they're actually the only ones who are allowed to kill in the domain, because they're the ones meant to bear the burden of death, and just they're part of the church, so they can know who's good and who's bad, and they can have that judgment, and they know who to kill, basically. So and then then there's Nasha in the Clanlands, who the Clanlands have their other, they have their own culture. A lot of it was based on stuff that I grew up with in Brazilian society. So there's like a few of these people who live on the slopes of a volcano, which is kind of analogous to what we have here in Brazil that we call the favelas, which are the shanty towns that live around the city, basically, right? If you've ever seen a picture of Rio, you'll probably see, there are plenty of pictures of favelas just going up the mountain. So and she has to deal with all the prejudice that comes with this, and kind of being accepted. And she also has this kind of curse which lets her feel the emotions of everyone around her, but she can't control it. So she's really scared that she'll lose control. It's happened in the past, and if she's taken by anger and loses control, she can just go out killing people because she doesn't know what she's doing, right? Because this curse kind of gives her a bit of power as well. So yeah, I would say in a nutshell, but I feel like I've been rambling. I don't know if it was in a nutshell. So that's
Oh man, it's a sprawling fantasy world. You've got multiple POVs. I mean, it's not going to be super tight and concise. I mean, maybe eventually.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. It's funny. We were talking a little bit off screen. Yes, so some of the or a couple of the people on the blog were like, "Gosh, it's a little darker than I was expecting." And I think you see the word light, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be a little bit lighthearted." No, you actually read just a touch of light, because it's gonna be pretty dark.
Yeah.
So would you call it? If we actually had a definition for grimdark, would you call it, I guess, somewhat grimdark, or would you just call it kind of just dark fantasy that has some grim elements?
I call it somewhat grimdark. Kind of like, I really like Mark Lawrence has a blog post he has a blog post with a grimdark scale.
Yeah.
So I really like that, because I don't think it's super grimdark, but
So it's not Beyond Redemption by Mike Fletcher, which is like the number one.
Yeah, exactly. And Michael Fletcher was the first one who sprung to mind when you said grimdark. I was gonna say it's not Michael Fletcher levels of grimdark, but it's kind of dark. It has a lot of fighting and violence in it, and the world is pretty dark, and people are not always good, and you can't really trust everyone. There's a ton of betrayal in this book. So yeah, I think it's grimdark on the level maybe of what you see from Game of Thrones, or maybe Red Sister from Mark Lawrence, or even The First Law, something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like maybe like First Law, or like Blood Song by Anthony Ryan. It's got elements, and it can be pretty dark at times, but it's not just like death. And then maybe something redeeming at the end. Well, I just want to show the cover again, because actually when Thiago first showed me the cover and we did a reveal of it, I just thought it was so freaking pretty. And not only that, is that if you get a hardcover copy like I have here, you get the naked hardcover, which everybody loves a good naked hardcover, right? Ingram Sparks' decisions to do this was probably one of the best things ever.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong. I still leave, the jacket on it, but like every now and then I'm just like, I want to see it twice.
Yeah. That was actually one of the details I obsessed over for a long time. If I wanted to have just the art beneath, or if I wanted to leave it with the title and all that. But I know a lot of people are jacket removers, so I wanted them to have the full product if they remove the jacket. So I left the title on there. So yeah,
How nice of you. But now
yeah,
you got to keep it throughout the entire series.
yeah.
Last question I got for you. What are some recommendations maybe that you've read here recently that you just feel like everybody needs to read?
Oh man, I'm actually reading Cold from the North right now, which is really really good, uh, by D.W. Ross, right? I think he even was on TBR Con.
Yep.
So, the funny thing about this is when I was writing a book, I couldn't read. I just couldn't read because it started influencing me in kind of I started writing like a bad Mark Lawrence or a bad Joe Abercrombie or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I tend to juggle books a lot, but I just think I think there are a lot of people that I can shout out with some cool books. I've been reading Cold from the North. My audio thing that I'm listening to now is Ryan Cahill's of Blood and Fire. So that's been really really cool. I think it's a perfect description of uh, the kind of classic fantasy with a modern voice, because he really does get those tropes and kind of uh, flips them a little bit to give you something that's told in a modern voice, but is really really classic. So uh, I think two of those, and now I'm just catching up on all the stuff that I didn't read for the last 2 years. So I think I finished A Little Hatred a little while ago. I know it's on like the third book, but I really really liked it, and I can recommend anything from Mark Lawrence or Joe Abercrombie, and you'd be happy. King of Thorns is still one of the great masterpieces in my opinion. So I know it's not it's been out for like 10 years now almost. Prince of Thorns is going to get a 10-year anniversary, but
Yeah.
those are kind of like my go-to books that I recommend to people who don't read fantasy. For people who are reading fantasy that I'm reading right now, I really like to jump into the indie recommendations, because you know I really really like the indie community and how they've just taken me in, and all the friends that I've made here. So uh yeah, I'm excited to jump into a few more. um and yeah, I think those are the big ones. I read Shadow of the Gods as well a little while ago, which is really really cool. Really excited for Hunger of the Gods. So uh
Really
yeah,
good.
yeah.
It's better than Shadow. It's really good.
Yeah, you've read it already.
Yeah.
I forgot. Oh, yeah.
I gotcha.
So yeah,
Yeah, don't feel right on me. You can recommend Lawrence and Abercrombie all you want to. I mean, I didn't read Broken Empire till 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm a late bloomer to fantasy, so I'm still way behind on series. I mean, I'm behind on, I read mostly like new stuff. So like I'm reading like debuts, I'm reading authors' new works. So like, I my first major book by Anthony Ryan wasn't, until The Pariah that came out last year. Like I haven't
yeah,
read all of his like backlog. I've still got to read Red Queen's War by Lawrence. I mean, I've only read The First Law by Abercrombie, so I've still got like 2 series to read and some
yeah,
standalones. So yeah, it's just, it's when do I have time for something older and then mix it with something new. Trying to balance that and everything else has been interesting. But
yeah,
I also just kind of beat myself over the head with rereads. So like I'm doing a reread of like Red Rising and all that stuff, and I've got to do like my annual reads of Lord of the Rings and stuff. So
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I can't not reread the classic books that like I've loved over the years. So do you feel that way too? Do you reread a lot of books?
Yeah, a book I always reread is uh, Patrick Rothfuss, right? The Name of the
Mhm.
Wind and Wise Man's Fear, because there are so many little details that you can pick up and kind of just create theories about it. And there are so many theories on YouTube. If you look for them, you can really go down a rabbit hole. So I don't think it's something I necessarily have, I need to read this book every year, but it's kind of a comfort read for me in many ways. Just the prose and the little details, and hiding stuff in plain sight. It's actually something I that really influenced me in A Touch of Light as well. I kind of just throw a few details in there and don't really call attention to them. And if you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss it. Uh, so yeah, I like that. And the guys on the Oasis are doing a Broken Empire read along. So I had a lot of new stuff I wanted to read this month, but I reread King of Thorns because
Because why not, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I always feel like if I just get to a point where like reading something new just isn't working, I'm just like, okay, what of my like 30 comfort reads that I know everything about can I just like pop into audio and just let it go? I mean, I do that with Harry Potter. I mean, I'll just string along listening to Jim Dale do 7 books over the course of like a week or two.
yeah,
The same thing, now granted I'm listening to Andy Serkis's narration of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, because he's just amazing. So why
yeah,
not? But yeah, I mean, it's just something you can throw on. You've listened to it before, but you can still count towards your reads for the year and feel good about yourself.
yeah, yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, Tiago, congratulations on publishing your debut novel. And congrats on all the rave reviews that you've gotten so far. I hope tons more continue to pour in. I know we've got several coming from Fanfi Addict and other blogs, especially on the tour. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me about A Touch of Light. Everybody definitely go grab this beautiful book, whether you grab it in ebook, paperback, or hardcover. Definitely take a stab at it. Let me and Tiago know what you think. And Tiago, we'll do this again, man. I'm looking forward to book 2.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Man, I'm just really happy to have the opportunity to sit and chat. We've been talking on Twitter, but it's really cool to finally, have the time to chat. And I hope book 2's out soon. I'm not gonna make any promises or even say stuff, but I've been telling people I want it out pretty soon. So let's see if I can. I call it pulling it a cat hole, because Ryan, he released his first book in March, and then the second one at the end of the year in December. So yeah, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try and do something similar if I can.
Don't emulate too much, because I think he is like, okay, now I'm going to stretch out the 3rd book for an entire year.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to give myself plenty of time. But it's funny, he jumped the gun throwing the cover out there, because he's like, I just couldn't hold it. I had to put it out there. I was like, dude, it doesn't come out for a year.
Yeah.
Well, man, best of luck with it, and we'll be here when it does come out. So, but
Thank
just
you.
thanks
Thank you.
again. Best of luck with the rest of the tour, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks.